Welcome back to County Talk. Today we're talking about Sarasota County's comprehensive plan with Planning Manager Alan Parsons. We're joined now by Planner Elma Felix. Elma, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So, Alan, last segment we talked a lot about growth, where we came from, where we're going. Let's talk a little bit nuts and bolts. How does the plan actually function? Let's say I want to build a single-family home or I want to build a business. How does the plan work for me?
Well, one of the things that was one of our main objectives in this recent updating of the plan is to make it understandable to really anyone. So this is the community's plan, and it's intended to be understandable by members of the public. So if you were interested in potentially building a home for yourself, we have a chapter in there called the Future Land Use chapter. Future Land Use map. Within that chapter is a long-range plan, land uses, that ties together much of the other things that I mentioned earlier that the plan covers. So you could take a look at our long-range plan and see where the county has plans for, over the long term, development to happen. So if you're interested in a single-family type home, you can see where that land use is anticipated. If you're interested in something that might be higher density, apartments, for example, or condominiums, you can look and see where the county has already anticipated that that kind of growth would take place. You can take a look at the kind of land use that might be something that would be interesting to be living next to, or something that would be convenient to be living next to. So do you want to live close to where you would be working? Do you want to live close to where you would be shopping? Where your children may be going to school. So all of those things are kind of tied together in the county's future land use plan. That's a long-range plan. And then we actually have within the county land development regulations and zoning code that lets you know what you can do on a given piece of property today.
So then what's the difference between a land development regulation issue and a comprehensive plan issue? I think that might be confusing for some folks.
Yeah, and it is something that we in general don't get a lot of education about growing up in schools. You don't learn about future land use maps or zoning. Yet zoning covers each and every single piece of property within Sarasota County that has limits on what you can build, how it has to be situated, meaning is it set back from a property line, what's that distance, how tall can it be, what are the uses, can you have a say a convenience store within, if you happen to live in a residential neighborhood? Probably not. So zoning tells you what the rules are, and that covers every piece of property within Sarasota County.
Elma, we talked a lot, as I mentioned, about growth in the last segment. So how does the plan work in terms of responding to the demographic changes that we are anticipating here in Sarasota County?
Right, and like we talked about during the first segment, I think noticing the growth patterns and where growth is happening while updating a plan is really important. And I think from a policy perspective, what types of growth are we experiencing? We talked about infill, we talked about redevelopment. Well, what sort of policies or mechanisms are in the plan that allow those things or facilitate those things to happen? So I think it's a key component, and really this plan is trying to respond to our future growth. I think the plan looks at the next 10, 15, 20 years outward, and looking at the growth of the county is really important to talk about what those types of growth components could be.
We talked about updating this every 7 years, so
Right.
that's part of an ongoing process. But
Right.
beyond that, is there a philosophical reason, or is there another reason that this plan was changed, for the future?
I think so. I think our last comprehensive plan update was in 2006, and our county has changed tremendously from then until now, just from demographically speaking. But it's important to really sort of pause and take a snapshot of the county, where we are, where we're going, where we've been, sort of take examples from where we've been, sort of things that worked, things that didn't work, and really take a moment to examine them collectively, is not just the planning department, but with the community, to really stop in and focus to see, are we still going in the right direction? Are we still going the direction that we want to, or should we be looking somewhere else or doing something else? So I think it's important to really take those moments to really pause and reflect on where we're going as a community.
So obviously there's a lot of data that's part of this process. There's
Definitely.
a lot of numbers that are part of the process, but it's more than that, is what I'm hearing.
It is. It definitely is.
And it's a living document. I think there's perhaps a misunderstanding that the words and the goals that get approved in a comprehensive plan or something that remain forever. So that going back and taking a look at it comprehensively, like Elma mentioned, what works, what doesn't work, what should we change, what are the new goals for Sarasota County, whether it's in economic development or how we want to be getting around is something that we don't want to have locked in place from some, period that made sense perhaps in 1980 or 1990, but may not necessarily be making sense for where we're headed. So we check back in with that regularly.
Okay. All right. Well, great. That's some great information. Let's pause right there for a second. When we come back, we'll recap the comprehensive plan update process and take a look at some of the key changes. Stay with us.